Hello, anatomy friends, and welcome to a big transition. So, we finished our discussion in terms of the joints, and now we're going to focus in on skeletal muscle. But before we get into that, I want to talk some big picture things such as properties, functions, and just even the different types of muscle tissue. So, let's get right into it. We have three learning objectives for this video, and they're very similar in structure, so we should lend towards ease of engaging with these as we work through this content. Make sure you're able to answer these in your own words before we move on to new content. And we will start with properties of all muscles, and there are five properties. First will be excitability, which sometimes you hear as responsiveness rather than excitability. This is a similar concept. And this is actually a property of all living cells, but muscle cells and nerve cells have developed this property to a very high degree, particularly in comparison to other types of cells. So, what this actually means when a muscle cell or a nerve cell is stimulated by chemical signals, or when we're talking about muscle cells stretch or other stimuli, the cells will respond with electrical changes across the plasma membrane of the cell. And when we're talking about a muscle cell, that plasma membrane is called a sarcolemma. So excitation can happen. This leads into another property, which is conductivity. And when a muscle cell is stimulated through those events we just discussed, it produces more than just a local effect, meaning rather than just a little local electrical change that stays put, it will trigger a wave of excitation that can travel rapidly along a cell. It can even travel into the depths of the cell. And this process will lead to contraction, which leads into our next property, contractility. And this means that a muscle is able to shorten, and it can shorten substantially after the stimulation that occurs with excitability and conductivity. And so a muscle is able to shorten, but it's also extensible, meaning it can stretch too. And that's hugely important. This may not seem like such a big deal, but when you consider that most cells of the body would actually rupture if stretched even a tiny bit, it is increasingly impressive that a skeletal muscle can stretch up to 3 times its contracted length. Elasticity goes with extensibility because this is the ability to return to the original length and shape after being stretched. If it were not for this elastic recoil, resting muscles would just be too slack, similar to what you're seeing in this rubber band on this image on the right. All right, so those are the five properties of muscles. Let's move on to functions, and many are pretty intuitive, starting with movement. That's generally what we think of when we think of muscles. This allows us to walk and to hug and all kinds of good things. But movement also includes things like breathing, pretty important, right? Digestion, communication, circulation of blood and childbirth. So there will be muscles within those blood vessels that are going to allow for blood to move through. Stability involves stability of joints, which they do this by maintaining tension of tendons on bones. And muscles can also maintain posture through muscle tone and preventing unwanted movements. Muscles also control body openings, such as the mouth and the eyes. There'll be sphincters around there. And like shown in the image on the right, you'll have sphincteric muscles in the urethra. Those need to relax to allow urine to run through to eventually leave the body. There will be passage of food, bile, so many other materials, things that we will be talking about throughout the course. Muscle, and in particular skeletal muscle, will play a role in heat production. Think of a muscle shivering. When does that happen? Or think of your body shivering. When does that happen? when you're cold, right? So those involuntary contractions of the skeletal muscle that happens with shivering will dramatically increase the rate of heat production. In fact, muscle can produce as much as 85% of one's body heat. And lastly, we have glycemic control. Skeletal muscle in particular absorbs, it also stores, and it uses one's glucose, and it can play a role in stabilizing and regulating blood glucose concentrations within its normal range. Let's finish our discussion by talking about big picture characteristics of different types of muscle tissues, starting with skeletal muscle. We'll also have cardiac muscle and then smooth muscle. So skeletal muscle is often what people think about when they think of muscles. It is named skeletal because most skeletal muscles will actually attach to bone, and so when they contract, they move the bone. So very intertwined with the skeletal system. Microscopically, skeletal muscle appears striated because of the organization of the myofilaments within, and these are typically considered voluntary. In fact, these are the only type of muscle tissue that is considered voluntary, meaning that we have conscious control over the actions of these muscles. And that's true for the most part. I can think I want to flex my elbow and my biceps brachii will contract. Um, but there's some exceptions. Actually, most skeletal muscles are controlled subconsciously to some extent when you consider overall muscle tone. And some muscles are even more than that. Think of the diaphragm, which is our major muscle associated with breathing. You're not constantly thinking about contracting your diaphragm. I know I'm not, and that allows for inspiration. So it has to work subconsciously as well. We will keep voluntary here. It might be more appropriate to call under somatic control, which has to do with the nervous system. And we'll talk a bit more about this term in upcoming videos, and certainly when talking about the nervous system. Cardiac muscle is only located in the heart walls. This type of muscle is also striated and it is involuntarily controlled. And these muscle cells are actually unique in the fact that they're autorhythmic, having internal pacemaker cells that initiate the contraction. But the autonomic nervous system will play a role as well. Last but not least, we have smooth muscle. This is located throughout the body. A lot of the hollow internal structures, such as most organs of the abdominopelvic cavity, but also associated with airways and, as I mentioned previously, with blood vessels. As its name would suggest, this type of muscle appears smooth histologically, meaning it lacks striations. And these muscles are also involuntarily controlled. They're going to be controlled by the autonomic nervous system. So much, much more to come in terms of your ANS. All right, our practice question. Which property of muscular tissue is shared with nerve cells? Pause and think through this. And when ready, what do you think? Well, I don't think a nerve cell can contract, so I don't think that's right. This is a very muscle thing to do. One thing that you also can think about is nerve cells are not going to be very elastic or really able to stretch very much. But there's one thing that both muscles and nerve cells share to a very high degree in comparison to other cells, and that is going to be excitability. So that is our correct answer. Recall that excitability is a cell's ability to respond to electrical changes across their plasma membranes. So muscle and nerve cells have this property in spades. So C, excitability is the correct answer. All right, excellent. Thank you so much for your time and attention.